Good day. Good morning. Hello. Welcome to Hug Nation Live. I am Don Halcyon Stin, and I have had coffee this morning. So, if you are plotting your graph at home, you will see a direct correlation between my attitude and my coffee intake. Wish it weren't so. Wish it weren't so, but such is the current state of my biology. Happy Friday the 13th. Look at that. Good morning, Gerbot. We are here for a moment of connection and gratitude. I'm feeling grateful this morning. I've had some good conversations. Had a lot of sleep. I woke up early, went for a walk with Lisa, I had some coffee. Cravat says, "Yay, stimulants!" I'm a fan. I have to do I really have to wean myself off periodically so I don't just keep building up my tolerance. Oh, Bastille, I'm yawning. Look at that. Good morning, Melissa. Good morning, Urban Monk. Urban Monk says, I am grateful for good coffee. I'm grateful for I'm grateful for all coffee. I'm a creamer and sweetener person, so I'm not as finicky about my coffee. Kervat says, grateful for better living through chemistry. I'm grateful. I've been pretty aware that some of my challenges of this last week have been that I have not done what I said I was going to do. I put on my calendar that I was going to be working on a chapter a week of a book idea, and I have really not been doing it. And so this morning, had some coffee, and at least I have been working on it. So I think there's just a shift internally of just removing that kind of self-judgment feeling. So I'm grateful, and it's like I knew. It's one of the things where there's a lot of things that you'll feel better if you do it. Like, I know I'll feel better if I meditate, and I do yoga, and I do my physical therapy, and somehow I don't do it every day. But if I'm in the habit of doing it, I do feel better. Well, I'm grateful that sometimes I act on that knowledge. High Noon says, hello from sunny High Noon. Melissa says, I'm grateful for lip balm and lotion. So dry with it being winter. Where are you with your dry winter? I'm grateful for a beautiful day here in San Diego. Grateful that I'm going to see my parents today and my brother. I'm grateful that I'm going to see my is my cousin's daughter, is that a second cousin or just I'm going to see family on Sunday. I'm going to see some friends this weekend. Grateful for this opportunity to connect with you. Oh, Minnesota, says Melissa. You get full winter points for that. I remember I went to I worked at a company, and most of my co-founders were from Minnesota, and we went on a business trip to Minnesota in the wintertime, and they were like, do you have a coat? I'm like, sure I do. They're like, you know what? We're going to loan you a coat, because I just was ill-prepared for a true winter. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, one thing cool about Minnesota is there's like habit trail, hamster tunnels from building to building so that you don't have to walk outside in parts of the downtown. Heinen says, I am grateful for nail clippers. Hooray for all technologies, especially nail clippers. I'm grateful that I'm now at a point in my life where I need nail clippers or nail files. For many years, I bit my nails. And so I never needed nail clippers because I would always bite it as soon as they got long. And now I clip them all and file them all the time. A big part of that was my realization that biting my nails was contributing to me getting sick more frequently because I was putting my fingers in my mouth, and your hands are what pick up so much of the germs in the world, as you touch things. And so if I wash my hands more and bite my fingers less, I get sick much less. The more you know. Urban Monk says it's been warming up and the snow and ice is melting and the temperature is perfect for me. 34 degrees. I love cold, but not freezing. I like a little chilly, but not that cold. You know, 60 is nice and there's plenty cold for me. As long as if it's cold enough for me to wear a hoodie, I like that. And that's pretty rare here. I I mean, I like it cold enough to wear a beanie too. And it's almost never cold enough to need a beanie and a hoodie in San Diego. And I have the best coat collection. It's really a shame. I'm grateful though. I'm grateful. I'm a fragile and sensitive petunia of a human being because of my being a San Diegan for life. Garabot, the more you know, and knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe. Anyone else want to share any more gratitude they've got today? I'm grateful. So the part of the book that I'm working on this week is about learning to mistrust your brain. And so I was looking up this morning. One of the things that I was talking about, I'm like, there's a number the idea of that at every moment of your life, the human brain is receiving 11 million bits of information. Like, if you take a moment and just start scanning your room or out the window, there's like, oh my gosh, the more time you spend, the more things you can notice, the more leaves, the more, oh my gosh, there's this bark right in front of me. And I could just start noticing all the different things. And you're receiving all of that at all times, or body scan, how much sensations are you, but you can only process 10 bits a second. So your mind is constantly filtering what it is sending you. So it's filtering and it is making assumptions and assumptions and drawing conclusions without really letting you process it because it's just too much to process at once. And the problem is that we are not aware of those compromises, those assumptions, those filterings that's happening before we get the stimulus. So we think we're taking that stimulus and being critical and open-minded, and that we are totally, we are fully processing our reality, but we're actually only being given the filtered reality, and then we do our best to make sense of it. And until we know that, we can have a false confidence in our own judgments, decisions, and conclusions. Good morning, Corey. Corey says, I'm grateful for your grandpa. I go to that gratitude because it covers just about everything else in my life that I'm grateful for. Because in fact, I'm alive. I get another day. Testify. Yes. Grandpa's here behind us on the wall. Good morning, Sarah. Sarah says, I'm grateful to be here with you this morning after much traveling and unable to tune in. Well, I'm glad you're here. It's a nice morning. I've got a little more chipperness in my step than I've had in the past. Urban Monk says, I'm a human polar bear. I do polar plunges and cold showers. I'm a Wim Hof follower. Bravo to you. I appreciate your focus and commitment. Juan says, I'm grateful for this practice and especially grateful how it makes us all feel. For me, it makes me feel happy in my chest. Such a wonderful feeling. How does this practice make you feel, please? I like that question. I feel a lightness. I feel uh, without gratitude, I feel a heaviness. And I feel that gratitude makes me feel like more trusting, more floating, more optimistic, more buoyant. High Noon says, I am grateful lots of snow because it means water, which means spring melt that allows us to have less droughts. Perspective may seem to miss empathy for those beings. Juan is saying, please share, everyone. How does gratitude make you feel? Natasha is saying, good morning from a rainy desert down in New Mexico today, for which I am very grateful. I'm thankful to have caught you this TGIF. We are in a Friday the 13th today. Thank goodness. Good morning, Mingle. I love you too. Mingle says, I have gratitude for you, John, to the moon and back. Thank you. Natasha says, makes her feel more hopeful. Mingle says, my life has leveled up exponentially since you've come into it. Thanks, Mingle. I'm grateful for the movie Sinners, which I watched last night. I was hesitant to watch it because it's a horror movie, but really, it's not. It did not really trigger any of my horror flags or my gore hesitance. I mean, there's some goriness to it, but there's some scenes in that are so beautiful and so badass and awesome. So really appreciate the movie Sinners. I understand why it got so much awards. Natasha's doing some math and saying that means there's going to be a Friday the 13th next month too. Urban Monk says, the practice of gratitude keeps me from being grumpy and jaded. Practicing gratitude helps me focus on the moment and to enjoy my wonderful life. High Noon says, it makes me feel closer to you all and more joy. Another vote for Sinners and its soundtrack. Yeah, it's Lisa is not a fan of horror or gore, but in the middle of the movie, I'm like, Lisa, there's a scene in this film that I know that you don't want to watch. You probably won't want to watch this movie, but you're really going to like this scene. And because the music, there's the scene in the middle where it says some people have this musical talent to connect you to the past and to the future, and that it does this really cool visual and audio flowing through the past and the future of Black music from Africa to modern hip hop, and it's really cool. And funk, yeah, it's badass. Any other gratitudes before we head off into our days to be love ambassadors? Natasha says, definitely my favorite scene. Yeah, it was really special. I'm grateful for my beloved Lisa and her sense of humor and how quick and how aligned our minds are. This morning we were walking and I said, considering my work with gratitude and my job with gratitude, I think I'm gonna get some business cards that say Titanic cellist. And she started laughing immediately. Does that make sense to you, that joke? Like, there's this, this famous scene or of as the Titanic is going down, the people are playing classical music as they're going down, which I think is just a beautiful um, image and philosophy. That with inevitable doom, these musicians said, well, let's make this moment better. Let's do what we love. Let's focus on the cone, even though we are surrounded by crap. And so, in some ways, even when the world feels really like we're the Titanic going down, us love ambassadors, us gratitude practitioners, we're like a bunch of classical musicians on the deck of the Titanic, going like, "Yeah, things suck, but let's just let's appreciate this beautiful moment." All right, you guys are just as quick as Lisa. Um, Natasha says, grateful to have a day to play with new paint and paint pens and try out some art. Cool. Urban Monk is grateful for a boring, restful, and rare, uneventful weekend. I could use the rest. Gearbot says, grateful for the stimulating insights you share and for the opportunity to discuss those. Yes, finding joy when the ship is sinking, exactly. Things suck, but how about some beauty? Hey, Corey. Yes, keeping everyone's spirits up as they face their impending doom. Yes. It's, and who knows? Maybe it's not doom. Maybe that we'll get on you just never know. That's something, what's his name? I can see it in my mind. Anyway, this philosopher that I really like, he was saying that throughout history, many of the things that we consider to be just like normal now, like democracy and merit-based economies and things like that, that in history, there were times when these things were just not even beyond what we could imagine that society and culture could be like. And so even though it's easy to get frustrated and pessimistic, that it's good to remember that there's always the possibility that there's a future ahead that we can't even perceive right now, and that the human mind is consistently uh, creatively discovering possibility that our previous realities could not conceive. Natasha's grateful for a 3-day weekend where both of the kids are home with us. Nice. Urban Monk is always grateful for love ambassadors. Natasha says, we couldn't conceive the one we are living in now a decade ago. Exactly. So let's keep our cello at hand and and keep playing as we keep our minds and hearts open. And with that, wherever you are, let's give ourselves a big ol' hug, appreciating the opportunity to take in all of this input, to filter it, and to sometimes maybe unfilter it, and remember that there's so much more stimulus than we can perceive, and our minds can only do so good a job of filtering and perceiving this reality, and that we're making decisions and judgments and conclusions from a really reduced, hampered place. So let's just acknowledge that and allow for some hope and some possibility and gratitude for all those that help us to keep our hearts open and remind us of the gratitude and the goodness and the joy and the cello parts and the beautiful classical music that makes this moment more beautiful. No matter what else might be happening, the opportunity to make this moment more enjoyable, more beautiful for ourselves and the people around us. Let's take a deep breath in and squeeze. On behalf of Grandpa Caleb and all of us here, thanks for being here. Love you. Have a beautiful Friday the 13th. I'll see you tomorrow. Hey, Chris. Good to see you.